Okay. Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, September 17th at 5 p.m. We are convening this meeting of the Code and Charter Review Committee at the Life Saving Station in Dewey Beach, Delaware. I'm Dave Lyons, Chairman of the committee, and I hereby call the meeting to order. This meeting is convened in accordance with the rules of the state of Delaware and the town of Dewey Beach. It is also being live streamed via Zoom. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move on to do a roll call. I see Marcia. I see her here. Jimmy O'Connor's right next to me.
Present.
Diane.
Here.
And David.
Present.
Thank you, sir. And then of the town officials, I see Dawn, are you still with us? Yeah, I see her there.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And our town manager is here, Bill Zolper.
Good evening, everyone.
And Commissioner Persinger.
Hello.
Thank you. Anyone else I've missed? Okay. The first action today is to adopt the agenda for the meeting. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Next topic is to approve the minutes from June 3rd of 2025. Are there any discussions or changes to the minutes? Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So I will open the public discussion for each agenda item as we consider it. I ask that the discussion of the agenda items be considered as we go through each one. So that said, I'm going to open up to, are there any general comments from the committee members? Anybody wants to cover off? Bring to the table? Okay. Any general comments from the public? All right. Any general comments from town officials?
No, sir.
Okay, good. So then we are going to turn to the first item, which is discuss and possibly vote to recommend to the town council amendments to chapter 71 of the municipal code regarding building permit requirements when repairs are needed to residential or commercial properties. So this time I'm going to open public discussion for that item. Let me give you a little background here. So we as a committee considered this topic on several previous meetings in January of 24, February of 24, and April of 24. The commissioners then reviewed the topic on June of 24. So I'm going to go through a little bit of the details here. So for those of us who heard it before, I'm going to try and move on. For us new folks, I'll go through and try and provide as much background. Feel free to ask any questions. So the original background here is it was brought to the attention to the town by Highway 1, who expressed concerns with the length of time it took to get a repair for something as simple as a repair or maintenance, a permit for a repair or maintenance topic. Their issues were the time required to get a permit. They had an urgency need on the weekends. Basically, if they had a concert or something that was damaged, they wanted to be able to open business next day. They needed to be able to repair it quickly. And then their other question at the time was, why does maintenance require a permit? So the town currently requires that a building application be submitted for any work performed in the town. It's the only means the town really has to monitor work that is done in the town. The fee structure is all determined by town regulations. There's nothing to do with FEMA or anywhere else. It's the town who decides what the cost of a permit will be. Fees captured by building permits represent 16% of the town's budget for the year, just so you kind of know. So we don't have a property tax, so we fund it from other alternative means, one of which is the revenue generated from town permits. Currently, the town code states that if materials are less than $1,000, then no fee is required. Anything else is subject to a 3% of the total amount is determined by the permit, is 3% of the original amount and the permit fee. Okay. I'm going to go on here. So 2/3 of the town is in a floodplain. Floodplains are established by FEMA. In 1982, I think the town signed up to become part of FEMA, part of the floodplain, and participate. In 2012, we updated our code to comply with then the national standards for floodplain management. We had to adopt those requirements in order to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. So the National Flood Insurance Program is sponsored by the government and basically is insurance that they will provide in the case of a flood disaster from the ocean, rain, the bay, but you have to follow their code in order to participate. They have very specific definitions for what they call substantial improvement. Substantial improvement is defined as any reconstruction, rehabilitation, addition, or other improvement to a structure, the cost of which equals 50% of the market value of the structure before the start of construction of the improvement. Now, we also had a conversation with FEMA in 2024 and talked to them about maintenance. Why does maintenance fall into this category? Why? Because if you're talking about substantial improvement, why must we consider maintenance? Their concern at the time was, unless a professional from the town reviewed every permit, how would they know what would put the town in risk of violating the substantial improvement definition? Additionally, FEMA requires the town track multiple permits, so that if multiple permits exceed 50% of the value, then they have to comply with everything associated with FEMA. Okay? What the town charges for the permit is immaterial to them. They just want the paper trail to ensure, and they do audits to review what has been done. They'll question specific properties in town, and they go to the town has to substantiate whatever processes, whatever has been done to the home.
Have they done that recently?
Yes,
Yeah.
within the last 6 months.
Is it like an annual thing or just
Dawn could better
Whenever.
answer that, but
whenever they want to do
we
it?
just had it done.
Yeah. In any case, you have to file the application. It may, I think today what Dawn advised me is everything results in a permit being issued. If its materials are less than $1,000 and you're not in a floodplain, the fee can be waived. The fee is generally waived to zero. I think I've got that right. So one other topic that I want to bring up in discussions with Dawn is that the county has specific requirements for which they require a permit. Anything like electrical or plumbing has to be applied through the county. And the town is supposed to enforce anything that the homeowner does to the county. So I think Dawn had some other comments. I'll ask her to step in here in terms of how are they supposed to know? In other words, if you don't apply, we currently have a requirement that any work done by a contractor, the contractor has a business license in town. So how are they going to find that unless somebody applies for the permit? There are concerns about if normal maintenance is completed on their lot outside of current setbacks. In other words, for some reason, the homeowner has a legally non-conforming, their home is legally non-conforming, then how do we assure that that is not violated or changed? And that's the only way the town has to really check it. So with that, I'm just going to say in 2024, I'm going to give you what we as a committee recommended. So we as a committee recommended that we move the threshold for permitting of materials to 3,500, and any work that requires less than 3,500 materials would not require a permit. That the commissioners should review the code and enforcement with code and enforcement department, any administrative procedures that could be adopted to streamline the permitting process and still comply with FEMA regulations. The commissioners should consider whether repairs should be exempted from the permit process. We should track permitting costs over 10 years, as Bethany does, by residents, and allow for different permitting requirements for businesses and residential. In June of 24, the commissioners reviewed our recommendation, and at that time, they decided to track the building permit process. They asked to track it over 6 months, basically to track the timing of are we able to turn the permits quickly. I will also say that the town has added 1.5 people, is that right, to code enforcement to speed the processing of permits and enforcement. So I'm going to stop there. That's kind of a summary of what we've been through. Dawn, do you have anything to add that want to correct what I said there?
Nothing of significance, no.
All right. So that is it. That's what we considered where we were. So I'm going to throw out some questions and let's consider them. And I guess maybe I'll stop here and say, does anybody have questions? Anybody from the committee have questions here first?
So did the town, I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. I was trying to make notes. Did the town accept any of the recommendations?
No. So the answer is no. The
Okay.
commission's agreed to study it for 6 months. And Commissioner Persinger, maybe you could add some quality or some light on that topic.
Yeah, I think that when we considered this, there was some concern because of the position that FEMA had taken, basically that, any permit or any work that was done in a floodplain property needed a building permit. And that is in part supported by language that's in our code in section 101, where it talks about any construction or development on a property in a floodplain needs a building permit. And there's a broad definition that's included both in FEMA regulations as well as the town code that defines development as any man-made change to improved or unimproved real estate. So what our discussion came down to was really can the town process these building permits on a efficient and timely basis? And we have not gone back to take a look at those data to see what the timing is. The elapsed time for granting, on average, the elapsed time is for granting building permits. But that's certainly data that's available and can be analyzed. We didn't. I think there was a number of questions about how the current threshold of $1,000 in materials cost is applied and utilized. I'm getting some background noise there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Gary.
Okay.
There is some background.
I think it would be helpful if Dawn could tell us a little bit about how much use is there of this $1,000 exception that's currently in the code, and how's it applied for flood zone properties? Dawn, do you have anything you could share with us on that?
Well, Laura, who does the rentals and the business licenses and fees and so forth, did a nice spread in an email. I don't have that email in front of me. I think she sent that to Bill, the town manager, and others. I was included in on that. Let me see if I can bring that up.
I have it, Dawn. You want me to read it? Yeah.
Okay, yes.
In 2024, the number of permits issued was 489. 11 of those permits were demo permits. 67 of those permits had $0 fee. They were for pruning. Some was work done for the town. 34 permits were for materials/labor less than $1,000. There were 61 permits issued for $1,001 through $2,500. That resulted in $3,072 in fees. For permits of 2501 through 7500, there were 111 permits. That resulted in $14,051 for town revenue. And from 7,501 through 10,000, there were 56 permits issued. The fees recognized were $13,883. Permits over 10,001 were 183. I don't have the revenue with that.
Well, I think my question is more to how do you really determine materials cost? I think what you just said was there were 34 permits that were $1,000 or less in materials/labor costs. But, the exception applies just to materials. So does the town have any practical way of really assessing whether or not any given project is less than $1,000 in materials? And is that something that gets discussed or reported at all on building permits?
Go ahead, Dawn.
When we receive a building permit application, we look at the scope of work. And many times, if they are stating that it's $1,000 or less, we do ask for receipts. It depends upon certainly what they may be doing. If they said that they're simply going to put in a bathroom toilet, something of that nature. Things of that nature, we want more or less an idea of what the supplies, the materials will be. It's really an honor system that we do go by. But many times when we ask the questions, we find out, oh, it's really a little more than that. So it just basically depends upon the conversation and what the folks would supply to us.
Okay, but for those properties, for those situations where you do have a property owner who says this is less than $1,000 in materials cost, and let's say it is, do you issue a building permit, or you just say, okay, you don't need a building permit, and do you do the same thing for flood zone properties?
Whenever I receive an application and it's $1,000 or less, I require a permit to be created. One, because if it's in a flood zone, I require that because of the FEMA desire to have an audit trail. And FEMA, in actuality, I've got 2 FEMA audits coming up. I'm in the middle of 2 of them right now, plus the one that I had earlier this year. So FEMA does audit, and this is the town of Dewey's year to be audited. Now, if there is a application for something to be done in a non-flood hazard area, if they have supplied an application, then of course, many times I personally will create a permit, then 0, just have that paperwork in there. Or many times folks will call and say, this is what we're doing. And I know both Jim and I have said, well, if that is what you're doing and we're using reasonableness, then thank you very much for letting us know. We will let code enforcement know that you've got work being done there.
Okay, all right, that's helpful, thank you.
So Dawn, just to summarize, the only way you really know is if for somebody to call you or for them to submit the application, right?
Yes, or sometimes what's interesting, we do receive phone calls from neighbors, people that have walked by and so forth, and saying there's been work being done at such and such a location. Then we've got to then go out and check it out.
Code enforcement finds them too, right?
Yep. Okay. Anything else, Gary? Any other thoughts?
No, that's all.
Okay. So one topic is, I'm just going to ask some questions and kind of and get some comments about, should we continue this exception? Should we perhaps try and generate some difference for a maintenance project versus, I'll call an improvement? And what about the $1,000? The $1,000 has been in place for quite a while, I think 2006 maybe, right? And materials have obviously increased in cost a great deal since then, so should we consider making a recommendation to increase it? One of the other things is, should we make that based on the entire cost of the job or just the materials? Today, it's just materials. So
we're talking about going back to 2,500 again to recommend that to them?
yeah, last time we recommended 3,500.
35, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So I will open it up. Are there any comments? Anybody else have anything else they want to add to the conversation here?
I guess I have a question.
Go ahead, Marcia.
In terms of the numbers, 489 permits, 100, I think you said there were 34 that were under $1,000 that were in the exemption. Then there were 61. Was it under 3,000, did you say?
You're good. Under $2,500. You got it.
2,500. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's 25% almost, a little under 25% of the permits you take in annually. That's a huge amount of work and permits when you consider the 489 and a little over 100 or are for under $2,500. So, we're really in terms of 25% of the work and losing $3,200 in permit fees. It seems like the work that we're using staff hours for will far exceed by probably tens of thousands of dollars to review these minor, what appears to be maintenance permitting. If we go with the $2,500 threshold, it really would free up a lot of staff time on something that's so minor. And my question is, do we have the data on how quickly we can turn over like a permit such as painting, or I need to change a heat pump? Are we able to turn those over quickly in, 48 hours? I think it's all relative to, how are we structuring our staff time and what's the cost on staff time to handle 100 permits under $2,500 when we only take in over 400 annually. That's a lot of staff time.
Thanks, Marcia. Yeah, we don't have, to your question though, we don't have available tonight the data about the response time. I'm going to ask Bill if he could follow that up for us. And we can, matter of fact, if you want to send it out, or I don't know if we'll come to a conclusion tonight on this or not, but we can certainly distribute the data to everybody so that they know what it is.
I can tell you, if the applications are filled out correctly and the amounts are correct for the type of work they're doing, we don't have to spend a lot of time going back out and checking. It's done rather quickly. You have to fill out the application correctly.
How many do you think you have to send back?
I don't know, you'd have to ask Dawn that.
Yeah.
I'm not going through them.
Yeah. Dawn, go ahead.
Whenever an application is coming in through the building website, building@townofdeweybeach.com, Dave, our permit technician, opens them up and starts the initial review. If he has any questions, he's got to contact the people, because many times the paperwork and the application is very vague to being incorrect. If the paperwork is correct, he immediately gives it to Jim or myself. We process it right then and there. We send out the information to the applicant either by phone or by email that their permit is ready. Many times it is before the morning is out. So a lot of the times that whenever there is a delay, and I cannot give you a figure, I cannot give you any amount of applications themselves. But if that's what we need to start doing, I will start doing it. But the number of applications that come in that are incomplete is just horrendous. And the point is, we need to have proper information in order for us to do the proper work on our side. But if you would like to have us start doing that, I will have that taken care of. But when it comes to things like HVAC, plumbing, and whatever, we want the individual contractor. If it is an emergency, then we don't want the people to be without the electric, the water, and so forth, air conditioning. But we do ask for, once again, the honor system by many of these contractors. Bring and submit an application so we can get a proper permit. And the majority do, but there are a few that don't. But anyway, if you would like me to start that, I can do it on a month trial basis.
I think that would be useful information to get, Dawn. So if you can accommodate us, I think that would be good in terms of telling us, I think a percentage, if you can give us a process time. And then I think the other thing that would be good to track is if there's a percentage that are having to be, I'll say, turned back, or you have to make a phone call to get clarification. I think those elements would be helpful.
Just one question, Dawn. What kind of incomplete sections are in the application? What are some examples of things that send them back that they seem to be, you know, obstructing this process? Are there certain areas of the application?
Well, many times people will not have a complete description in the scope of work. And they will say renovation. And unless we would read the contract, we have no idea if it's a renovation for windows, it's for flooring, it's just what it's for. So then we have to make a phone call. And if they haven't supplied their contract, which is in detail, or at least itemized for us to have an understanding of what they're doing. So we make a phone call for that. A lot of times the applications, what's interesting is that in our application, we have a section that says property owner, and it gives the name and address and so forth. That particular amount of information, many times, is so incomplete. It is not the applicant or the property owner that really has submitted that application. The contractor's doing it on their behalf, but the property owners are not accurate, either according to our records or for the county records. So we've got to research and make sure that that property owner really wants that work to be done. Many times there's work that needs to be done, and yet it's part of an HOA association that we do not know whether the HOA is allowing this work to be done according to the declarations of that unit or that condo and so forth. So we've got to investigate that. So yes, that does take time. However, we do want to be as accurate as possible, and we need the help of folks to be as complete, and the contractors, but that doesn't happen. They're in a rush as well. So that's just a couple of ideas, the things that we have to research and check on and make phone calls.
The reason I asked was, I'm just wondering if part of what we could do in 2026 is create a system that's fully automated to link the application to come in with fields that connect through database queries and database formulas to the county tax roll, so that a lot of these things are checked off themselves. We could cross database some items, but it would take a programmer, so that it would eliminate what appears to be a lot of physical human work where we have databases that can be linked to check. Is this the property owner? Does it link up? You know, you're going to need a coder in there to write it, but it should link up to the county website and be able to pull that information and cross-check it. I think we could do that on several parts of the application. I've been involved in doing that this year with another business, and it's really amazing how the automation can eliminate, you know, complete staff positions, honestly. Not that that's what we want to do, but what I'm telling you is the time savings could be incredible. If it seems like you're taking a lot of time to have to do manual research, and maybe we could get some links in there. I think the other thing that I'm not sure, and maybe Dawn, you could just help think about it. I'm not sure if it's our or the town's responsibility to research what the HOA requires. I feel like that's between the HOA and the property owner, and they know the rules by living and owning in the HOA. And if they violate the HOA's rules because they get a permit from Dewey without getting approval from the HOA, I don't really necessarily think that should be something that Dewey bears work for. I don't think it's their problem to worry about. I think if people are responsibly doing what they need in their HOA, it's kind of like the division of church and state. Dewey Beach has taken an application, and HOAs have a whole different governing board, and I don't think we need to get involved with whether they got their approval from the HOA. I think it goes back to the people in their HOA, but it might be
But what
worth.
about, Marcia, what about in the instances where the homeowner just doesn't supply accurate information on the application?
Well, I think maybe looking at one of our applications, I mean, it just says description of work. I think maybe we need to be much more specific of description of work. Maybe we have 3 subcategories. Number 1, description of work. What type of renovation is this? Have you included the contract? And going back to the automation of this, if we have boxes linked to the coding of this and you don't complete them, the application, it won't let you submit it. It's like any other application online. It will refuse to let you submit, and those fields will be highlighted. You did not complete the data on this, or your property ownership doesn't agree with what the county records agree with. I think that going back to research property ownership at a minimum, and I don't know how the county's set up, but a lot of counties now have databases that link the building application right to the county records, so it verifies the ownership as an automation thing, would probably cut hours and hours and hours in a week of having to research that. So I'm just throwing it out there to something that we might want to look at. One of the communities or towns that are fully automated, more fully automated in the building process, where it does cross-reference these things through a database so that we're not spending so many physical man hours doing something that a database could check. Just as an idea.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is for Dawn, and there's no follow-up, right, on what was done?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Yeah, once the permit is issued or determine that it's an exception and the work proceeds, there's no follow-up on what work was done or not done, correct? It's
No,
just you're ready
not-
to go?
Many times that we do have follow-up. The gentleman that it works in code enforcement and in the building department is only part-time. So he does the best he can to follow up. But at the same time, many times, such as, let's see, we will call the contractor and ask the contractor, have you completed the work? And if we've worked with the contractor before, they'll tell us, yes, they have, no, they haven't, and keep us informed. But no, we do not follow up on every single permit that's issued, but we do follow up with as many as possible.
So Dawn, I want to ask a follow-up question for everybody's knowledge. So the county does our inspections, right, for electrical, structure? Do I have that correct?
No, the county has been hired by the county, town of Dewey Beach, or has an agreement with the town of Dewey Beach to do all inspections on behalf of Dewey. Those inspections include footing inspections, framing inspections, energy inspections to make if the house is or the addition is airtight and so forth per the energy code, and also final building inspection. Electrical and plumbing are not inspected by the county. That would be done by the state, whoever their inspectors might be. And so the electrical contractor and the plumbing contractor would need to be in touch with the state of Delaware because their license is involved on that. But the county does not do physical electrical or plumbing inspections.
And is that for just, what is that for? Like new construction, renovations? I mean, what exactly is that for?
The county, whenever we send over an applicant and what we call a referral letter for construction, it is based on a list that the county has said that they want to have a permit for such and such a construction activity. That list is on the county website under permitting by municipalities. And so whenever we get an application in, we look at that list and be able to say, oh yes, this needs a county permit. We send the applicant over, get their application, and come back. Many of those permits that are done by the county has the option of, one, either requiring inspections to be done by their building code department, or no inspections at all required by their building department. They have that option. And so they require a permit, but in some instances, they will do no inspections. And that just tells us that they're not going to be following up.
And once it goes to the county, it's out of our hands. Somebody will call and say, hey, how come I haven't gotten the permit? Where's the permit? And it's still sitting with the county. We have no control over how long it takes with the county.
Right, yeah, because we had a situation in our HOA where the homeowner lied about renovations they were doing.
Yeah.
The county wouldn't get involved, the town didn't get involved, and the fire inspector wouldn't get involved. So we're just left, okay, fine, we're just gonna hold the bag on this one. And, I mean, it was pretty disappointing.
Just experienced that also.
Yeah, can you get, David, can you go ahead, David? I want to give you an opportunity to speak up here.
Well, thank you. I'm really disappointed. I build up and down the East Coast for the last 40 years, and I've dealt with a lot of municipalities and the town officials and the building department. But the way Dewey has grown, I think we're way behind and we're antiquated in our building permit inspection process. I just experienced in my property and dealing with Miss Dawn for over a month and basically got misrepresented. And it's really probably my next door neighbor's fault, misrepresenting the scope of work to avoid the permit fees. You know, all the fees, you know, because we rent, all the realtors, there's a new state Delaware tax that's been imposed. All the realtors are imposing resort fees. So maybe we need to increase our building permit fees or slow down the issuance of building permits because we don't have the manpower to cover these properties. And besides putting a toilet in, maybe stuff that's footing, structural, which happened to me, that was never permitted. The only thing they put on the permit was they're going to replace some balcony rails. So the homeowner misrepresented it to you. And, you know, when we came in for the week, we see what is going on. There's footings on my property. They were never inspected. There was structural framing that was never inspected or approved or drawings. The permit was to put up some balcony rails. So I don't know, when we get a permit for structural work, do we go out and visit the site prior to approving the permit? It was just a lot of stress for us, and Dawn knows what we went through. And we actually came down to town hall. We had a meeting with some people, and some code officials said, oh yeah, it was approved. But there was a lot of back and forth, and it just wasn't a pleasant experience.
So I think one of the key issues obviously is enforcement that I'm hearing is like post-inspection, once the permit's issued, how do we know that the work is being done as written in the permit? And is there no final closure of the permit by the town? Doesn't sound like that there is.
Yeah, because in our case, the town missed out on probably thousands in permit fees. Because the job was approved for 20,000 and they easily spent over 100.
Right.
I want to, Jonathan's here, would you like to make a comment, sir? I'll open up for public comment on the topic. Is that, just want to make sure if you want to talk, you're certainly welcome to talk to the topic. Yeah, come on up. If you just say, just state who you are and your address, that'd be great.
Yeah, my name's Harry Gallagher, 121 Clayton Street. I'm just going to address the I guess the maintenance, the fee as far as the $1,000. I know that seems that's a big issue, but I want to kind of keep my scope a little bit clearer because sometimes I do my own homeowner work, and you know, I could do a lot other than, you know, getting into the into the permitting fee, the permitting request. But I think probably, at least at the bare minimum, the amount needs to kind of be looked at. I mean, $1,000 is really nothing nowadays as far as, when you get plywood for $57 a sheet. I mean, $1,000 could be spent like in 10 minutes. So I think at least, I know there's a number of issues that you brought up, which, kind of are scary in a lot of sense with that. But I just wanted to address the fact that I think the amount, was $1,000, which was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, needs really to be looked at. The other issues, I can't really address. I mean, it seems to be a lot of problems with this permitting process and people not being upfront as far as what they're doing and, putting in a permit, putting in a building permit and, kind of doing a lot more than what they're saying they're doing. So that's my final comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, I appreciate it. There's no one else here in the room. Is there anybody else online that would make a comment, like to make a comment from the public? Okay, I'm not hearing anybody. So I do want to just give a couple of the comments. So we received some letters. I'm going to go ahead and just read summary of those topics. I'm not going to go letter by letter. I'm just copied the comments from folks. So the permit process lacks follow through to ensure the owner performed the actual work and completes with code or complete with code. Process and pricing is perfunctory and arbitrary, suggests that the cost be aligned with the amount of time to issue and inspect the work. Why does the town require permits for simple maintenance and repairs? Contractor complains the town is very difficult and permits are not issued timely. It's difficult to get contractors and procedures are outdated and impact contractors' interest in taking on jobs in Dewey. Another comment here is raise the ceilings for permits to 3,500, tie the cost to the size of the house. Another comment. The permitting process should be easier. Encourage the property owner to maintain and improve their property, not make it difficult. The code department could be more proactive and informative instead of playing gotcha with property owners. They do not communicate that much with property owners about what's required and why. I don't fully understand what FEMA's requirements are with my property being in a special flood zone, very close to the ocean. I was told I need a permit even when I'm changing a doorknob. That's really a burden and I don't understand why. How does a doorknob affect flooding? And is a permit required even if you do the repairs yourself in this zone? So with that, is there any other comments from the group? Any other questions?
I guess for me, I can't really imagine we're telling people that they need a permit to change a doorknob or some door hinges, are we?
I did, it's just what somebody wrote. I mean, I was told.
I guess that would be my question.
Right. I have a question I want to get out for everybody. It's like a repair and maintenance item. We don't really differentiate in our code about repairs or maintenance. I think today the assumption is if you're doing a repair or maintenance, you need to get a permit. If you're painting, we require a permit. I would like to throw out there the idea of why, if I'm just repairing my house, keeping it in the same condition it was, I'm not changing anything structural, why does that require a permit? That's my question I'd like to throw out to the group. We don't define it in the code, we could. We could define the difference between a repair and a maintenance if that's what we wanted to do, but I'd suggest that a lot of things like replacing a doorknob is a simple maintenance item. I'm just fixing what's there. Why are we asking for any kind of a permit?
And I think the town is getting money because they're requiring a painting contractor to pay for a Dewey Beach business license. Why do they need a building permit to paint? They're already getting some money. I mean, there should be a dividing line here between doorknobs, painting. Why do we're getting a business license to the coffers, but why do we need a building permit?
Right.
That kind of takes up a lot of time in the review process.
Well, and there's probably a lot of work being done, a lot of repairs being done, that it doesn't even occur to people that they would need a permit, so they're just doing
Right.
it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I did here. I think it's really important is the rules haven't really changed that much, but I think people's knowledge, people come and go, move into town, they don't necessarily know. And I know there's a packet, I think there's a welcome packet I don't know if that welcome packet contains, when do I need to get a permit or not? But I think ongoing communication to the folks in the town would be helpful, just to reinforce, people forget. So whatever we come out with here in terms of recommendations that the commissioners implement, we need to be more public, I think, to the public and let them know what the requirements are and what they need to
I mean, it's
expect.
on the town webpage. If you go, what do you need for a building application, building permit? Just go, click on it, you can read right through it.
You know, but people aren't gonna even think to do that, Bill.
I mean,
Yeah.
we can't, you can only do so much.
I agree, but
Right?
I mean.
We put it out in the newsletter.
Right.
Right? We've put it out several times in the newsletter, and it's on the town webpage.
Yeah, but you have to go back to the basic, I'm just, like, we need to replace or repair our sign on our building, and we need to change the light bulbs. I don't think it's gonna occur to anybody to get a permit to change the light bulbs in the sign. And
Well, do you have,
it will
do you,
cost
do you
us-
have a sign, do you have a sign permit to put the sign up?
Well, it's already up, so.
Right.
So, but, you know, it will probably cost us over 1,000, but I don't know that it would occur to anybody to go look at the town website for that. I think they would just do it. Just call the electrician and change the bulbs.
Yeah.
Well, I think also we come back to the point of that comment begs to me being the voice of reason. For things that you don't think you would need a permit for, like painting the inside of my living room or changing a door that's broken or changing my countertop, I think a reasonable person would assume that these are general maintenance things that aren't really construction. And a homeowner should be able to do them without the interference, honestly, of government. I think what we continue to hear, you guys, I think Rehoboth is the catalyst of, you know, the reason Rehoboth has gotten the reputation of being called the People's Republic of Rehoboth, and I'm not the first one that's ever said this. When I heard it, I understood it. And what people, I think, are saying is, let's not become Rehoboth, guys. It's really difficult. It's difficult for people to live in the town. It's difficult for contractors. We're only 2 by 20 blocks. I agree with David. I agree with Dave. You know, we got South Bethany that lists all these things that are general maintenance. And I think it's a good guidelines. I also think it's things like painting, changing a vanity, changing a countertop, changing your door. If we hover over property owners with all of these, we are going to have that same reputation. And I don't think it's a good reputation living in a town 2 blocks by 20 blocks. I think we have to come up with something that's maintenance and a reasonable number that people can go about their chore of taking care of their home without feeling like every time they change a doorknob or a countertop, they have to go get a permit. And I also think if you look at bigger towns, I think beach towns are quite guilty of this overburden with government permits. Generally, other towns that aren't beach towns aren't this way. So why have we become this way? Why is it so necessary? You know, there are larger small towns that people live year round and they don't burden their homeowners like this. And I think what you're hearing and what everybody's hearing is this is being seen as a huge burden. And I think it's better if we get a higher threshold, 3,500, 3,000, 2,500. We define what maintenance is, which is upkeeping of our property, meaning we're not changing a wall, we're not changing plumbing, we're not changing electric, and we're not going over $3,500. And yes, you can maintain your property. And then we have to use somewhat of an honor system. We cannot be hovering over everybody's property when we see a painter walk in the front door. It just gets to be excessive.
Yeah, that's what's happening, Marcia. We had a painter who last year painted for us, and here comes the Dewey permit police, you know, asking for the guy to produce a permit to paint our front door, and he had to leave, and he lost that day of work. And
Yeah.
it's like a money grab or something. I don't know.
I just want us to really think about this. This is the reputation the town's getting. And
Yeah.
rather than going to the excess, we need to be ratcheting it back. We are just too small to have this kind of burden and for property owners to feel this kind of burden. I think they're telling you They feel a burden. They feel it's in excess. And we need to listen to them. It has to trickle down to also a balance of what the property owners feel. I can tell you for me on rentals, Saturday checkout day, and you know everybody's doing it. It's a day where you're able to get in there where there's maintenance issues. Somebody reports when they check out that they broke something.
Right.
A tile is broken. I have been stopped 4 or 5 times this summer with code enforcement not asking what they're doing, but pulling up and telling them they had to leave, that they were not permitted to work on a Saturday. Some of those times I could call Bill, but they did not ask what they were doing. If they had asked, they would have said, we're repairing a door that came off the track. Then my renters are left with a very unsafe situation from what was a maintenance item and a lack of communication. And I just think we need to do better. We do not. I don't want it. I don't know if the town does. I do not want the reputation of this town being Rehoboth in terms of that kind of stringent enforcement. I think there's a balance of, you're changing, when people are doing major items, when somebody's not honest on their permit, that's going to happen. I think part of the reason nobody would get involved in your HOA issue was the point I made. It's the HOA's issue. It's not Dewey's issue to make sure the HOA approved it. It's the HOA's. They're a different governing body. They have different rules. We should not be wasting staff time determining if the HOA got an approval. I think that'll give us back a lot of staff time. But I really, really hope that we can get past this. This has been going on for a long time, a lot of discussions. I think we've heard from the public, and I think it just becomes a burden.
Well, the homeowner didn't even check the box for HOA approval. So the town should have at least questioned that. Why don't you have HOA approval? And then
I
the
don't think it's the town's issue.
The resolution was to have the homeowner go back and apply to the HOA for work that they had already done. It
And I
was
think that's
silly.
where the HOA's attorney gets involved, not the town.
Oh, they
The
have
HOA
been, they
is
have
its
been,
own
they have
governing
been
body.
involved. They have been involved. And the other thing that they did was they added an interior bedroom without permission. They increased their occupancy. They've created a fire hazard because there are probably double the number of people now allowed in the unit. I mean, it's a mess.
Well, I
And for-
believe if they added a bedroom without permission, I could be wrong, but I believe Dewey has a right to go in and inspect that and have it removed.
Right, well,
accountable.
Dewey looked to the county and the county looked to the town and it went nowhere. And we never heard from the fire marshal. And it just, I was just disgusted by the whole thing. It was just, here you go, bye. I mean, it was just a terrible way to handle it.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, Marcia, I like I wrote your suggestions down. I'm going to go through them again. But is there any more comments from anybody else wants to say? I want to close the public discussion if I can. We can talk.
David, could you add one thing to the application where it says property owner? I think it'd be really helpful to get it correct by saying property owner parens. If your property is in an LLC, they are the property owner. Because I'm betting you get a lot of applications that are LLCs, right, John? That say property owner with the name. And then when you cross-check it, that's not who's registered. And I think people they just don't think about it.
Okay, I added that. I'll put it on our list.
Thank
So,
you.
is there any more public comment at this point? Okay,
You did have Jeff Smith join. Not sure if he wanted to make comment now.
Jeff Smith, would you like to comment?
He's on mute.
Yeah, Jeff, you're on mute. Okay, if you come back to us, we'll certainly include you in.
I'm right here. I'm right.
Oh,
Okay.
good, there you are.
Sorry.
Jeff, the floor is yours.
Yes. So I guess I'm saying some of the same things, but not entirely, as Marcia. I've had 3 contractors literally scared off site that did not come back, that prevented me from getting my house painted, power washed, even drywall work done this spring. And it was most unfortunate because some of these people don't speak English fully, so they're not going to necessarily be real friendly with the. Now, these are people I applied for a permit, I should say. And it's the license issue that no one has brought up, but that's really what's keeping, I think, Dewey getting a bad name, because the homeowners can pull a permit pretty easily. I mean, you do have to make a couple trips and this and that. But I think it's the licensing of, for example, a drywaller. I mean, to me, that's absurd. And I had sent to Commissioner Persinger an AI search. It's unheard of in other counties, cities, places, just unheard of. So I was obviously dismayed. I'm still somewhat dismayed since the work didn't get done. And I'm very gun shy about having any contractor here that doesn't pay his license or whatever is licensing for such thing as drywall and painting. And so that's really, I think, the impact that's on the homeowner, that work's not getting done. And it's really quite off-putting when it's just maintenance. This was all just maintenance work. And the building inspector, the building police, as was said, 1.5 new people were hired. But everything has unintended consequences, and cracking down on small stuff. I brought up with Dawn, there's some big stuff we could look at, like old decks and galvanized fasteners and things like that are much higher priority. Being a master carpenter myself, I'm well aware that there are things that are going on in this town that are not being properly looked at, and the excuse is that we don't have a structural engineer on staff. So we're going to bust drywallers? So that's pretty much my comment, and I think I reflect the comment of most of the people up here at C Strand, which is 36 units up here on off Chesapeake Street. So, but thank you all for this, participating in this code committee and doing all your great work. Sounds like it's moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, and then we can discuss amongst ourselves. I'd like to see if we can come up with some recommendations tonight. I got Marcia's, and I'll go through them and see if we have. Jimmy, do you have something?
Where do you draw the line of, I'm just gonna put some drywall up to, I'm drywall in this whole room? And why wouldn't you need to be licensed?
You mean from a license perspective? Yeah.
And the permit, the same thing. I mean, if you're changing countertops, what's gonna say where you're just gonna change the cabinets and redo your whole kitchen? So I think it really does need to get looked into. I agree, changing a doorknob is ridiculous,
Right.
but if you're gonna change your countertops and your cabinets, you're remodeling your kitchen. So, in your case, the permit said they were doing one thing and they did a lot more. How do you hold them accountable?
Yeah, because it sounds like we're spending too much time on the little stuff, and it would be better use of the staff's time to look at the bigger jobs.
And I will say, the one part about the money grab, all these other towns have property taxes and we don't. So I'm gonna say they're gonna get their revenue where they can. And I put a property tax in, you won't have to deal with the money grab stuff.
Thank you.
Sorry,
But I mean, I'm going to tell you, it is a function. 16% of the revenue comes from building permits. So I think we could easily slim it back to like anything $3,500 and less doesn't require a permit. That's not going to have much impact in terms of revenue, and maybe it allows us to focus on the bigger things. But I agree. Bill, I just wonder, the business license, is it required for anybody who does work in the town? Is that right?
Anybody that's paying somebody to do work in town, you have to have a business license.
Right. So even for somebody who's just,
maids have business license, right?
They're all supposed to have business licenses.
I'm sorry, Jimmy, what was that?
Like maids or cleaners.
Rehoboth, the same thing. If you're gonna conduct business in the city of Rehoboth, you have to have a business license.
And we have signs on either end of town as they come in. They are in English. However, there are signs that a business license is required by anyone doing business in there. So, whose fault is it if, let's say, many non-English speaking companies don't read the English signs. But it's there, it's posted.
I guess the question I would have, back to Jeff's point, is if I have somebody who's doing a very minimal job, like painting a front door, do we really need somebody to have a business license to paint a front door? What if I paint the front door myself?
Don't need it.
You don't need it, right?
If I change the floor in Woody's, I don't need it. Because I
Right.
do the work myself. And the cost is under $1,000. Is that correct?
Well, you're in a flood zone, so you're gonna have to have paper on it. You may not be charged for it, that'll be determined by Dawn and Jim whether you're charged on it, but because you're in a flood zone, everything really south of Clayton, we're supposed to have a paper trail if we want to be part of the FEMA program.
I mean, that is, so that would be the other thing that we should probably revisit. Things have changed since 2014 when we had the conversation with FEMA, a different administration, different way of looking at things. So I also think it would be worth a call back to FEMA to see if they've lightened up on any of their maintenance or just how stringent they are on SI, significant improvements versus repairs. I think, Dawn, what do you think? You don't think so, Dawn? I think it's worth a call, but.
You're welcome to do so. However, on other subjects that I have to contact FEMA with, one time they will say the answer is this, and then I contact them a week, a month later, the answer has changed, and many times they will not commit. I've got a situation now where I have one FEMA representative saying yes, and the next one says no. So I don't know as if they will commit to a definitive answer. And they're not interested, FEMA is not interested in the cash that the town may or may not get, the funds that the town may get. They want to know whether there is a substantial improvement and it is done over the course of time and so forth, which ultimately they, being FEMA with the National Flood Insurance Program, it is somewhat a business because they don't want to have to pay out any more insurance flood claims. And so that's why they want audit trails, paperwork, so that they and their insurance agents can do whatever they do. And they don't want to have to pay out any more money than necessary on insurance claims.
Dave, you have
Yes,
a
Gary.
question? A little clarification on the issue of significant improvement. It's my understanding, I believe Bethany accumulates the improvements to a property over a period of 10 years. I think it's 10 years.
Yeah.
And if that accumulated, that total sum of the value of those improvements exceeds 50% of the cost of the structure, then you have to meet all of the FEMA requirements at that point. But in Dewey, we don't have and aren't required to accumulate improvements over time, is my understanding. Is that something that FEMA is changing in terms of their policy? I don't think that's a firm policy that they have that requires a municipality to accumulate those improvements, the cost of those improvements over time.
And Commissioner, you are correct. That is something that each municipality has the choice of. Bethany chose that.
Okay.
We did not choose to have cumulative once this new floodplain ordinance came into being. We at one time did have cumulative, but it was based simply on structural issues, if I'm remembering correctly in the research that I've done. But when this new came in, the town dropped it 100%.
Okay, so the value of a whole series of small projects would never have any impact on tipping a later project that's a much bigger project over the threshold.
That's my
Correct?
understanding, yes, because we're
Okay.
not keeping a running total. We do not do
Okay.
that. And how they do it, Bethany, I have no clue.
Okay.
I have a question. When FEMA does the audit on Dewey Beach, like
a contractor has to have subcontract certificates of insurance, and when they get it audited by their insurance company, and they can't present a subcontractor insurance certificate, they have a cost to absorb for not having a insured sub. Are we at jeopardy? Is Dewey at jeopardy not having this paperwork when here comes FEMA to audit Dewey's books?
The answer to that is no. Whenever I've had an audit by FEMA, they want to see any project that was done in the special flood hazard area, which is about 2/3 of the town. And if, let's say, there was a new home, a large addition and so forth, they want to see what's called an elevation certificate. That elevation certificate shows how high their livable floor is above the flooding. They do not want flooding to displace people out of their living space.
Right, and that height limitation has been revised in the last year or two, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, that's correct. We increased our freeboard to
Freeboard, yes.
a minimum of 2 with the option to go to 3 feet.
Right, so are we looking at a financial hit from FEMA if we don't have our paperwork together?
Not for this kind of.
You sure we're not in risk of being not compliant with their rules and could be forced out of the program?
We could, but then that would be the insurance, each individual property owner. What FEMA, when they come in to audit, they want to see this paperwork to make sure that the town has required, if a substantial improvement has been done,
Right.
that the house or the dwelling is elevated. Or if it's a commercial structure, then that commercial structure is dry flood proof, which that is something totally different that single family dwellings and residences cannot do, only commercial structures.
So the commercial structures that we have going on Coastal Highway right now that have ground floor retail, are we in compliance?
Yes, we are, because they are going to be doing dry flood proofing, which are barriers that will be placed in front of those areas if there is a storm that is coming through.
So that said, we're still at risk with the residential component with FEMA.
Yes, it could very well be. Many of these older homes, FEMA is asking me to come find records of elevation certificates, past elevation certificates, so that whenever a residence has had an improvement or it's a brand new one, that lowest livable space is elevated properly above.
Were you put on notice from FEMA making that request? And is there a drop dead date of when you have to produce this paperwork? And can we produce the paperwork? You're one person, doing a lot of things. How are we going to accomplish this audit?
Well, that's what I've been working on for weeks now, to be able to find the paperwork within the Dewey records, and also to be able to produce the records that I have worked on, the projects I have worked with. I have all those. I have all of that.
That's great. What's the formula if we can't produce paperwork for each property? What's the repercussions from FEMA to Dewey?
That I don't know. That remains to be seen. I haven't gotten to that point with those folks yet.
We've never had a FEMA audit?
I have not had this kind of FEMA audit, so I don't know how to tell you what it's like. Yes, audits have been done in the past. And the annual audits that I get through the FEMA CRS program, we've gotten 100%. Everything's fine.
Okay.
But when it comes to older homes and things of that nature, that's what they're interested in. That's what
Well, I'm sure with the older homes, they're going to find old building, standards. And where's it go from there? Do we impose the homeowner on the older homes to upgrade, raise the roof, What do we do?
So I mean, I believe that FEMA's requirement is that if there's an improvement to the home, right? If they have to comply with FEMA requirements. If there's a substantial improvement, which is 50% of the value of the home at the time they apply for the improvement. I'm pretty sure I got that correct, Dawn.
Yeah, yes, that would
Right.
be considered a substantial improvement, and a market value appraisal would have to either be done for that home or the county records.
I don't think, something doesn't make sense to me, and maybe I'm not understanding it correctly. I don't understand how FEMA could come in and ask us to randomly pick out older homes and ask to go back how many years? 5, 10? What's the formula? The FEMA is an organization of detail and processes. And so it seems odd that they'd be going, pick out some random older homes. I'm trying to understand FEMA because it seems like this big gray dump. Pick out some older homes and let's make sure they're up to compliance. Well, they're not going to be up to compliance. And if we've only been in existence since 1981. So my guess would be, and we had a very low point for raising the houses 2-3 years ago, which has been increased. How are we ever going to understand what FEMA wants if they're just saying, pick out some older homes randomly and make sure they're in compliance? We can answer them right now. They're not. What do you
Right.
want us to do? Send them a letter and make sure they raise their home? I don't even understand what FEMA is asking us to do.
FEMA has sent me a list of homes they want records for. I'm
Oh.
compiling those records.
Was it done through a random process, like a database where they just selected certain home numbers?
I
mean,
have
that would
no
be my
idea.
question to FEMA. How are we targeting these homes and understanding why and what the end point is? We know we got homes from the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Mhm.
Okay, FEMA, I'd like to sit with them and say, okay, let's just say we come up with, you asked us to look at 40 homes and 30 don't comply. We don't even have records of maintenance on these homes. What do you want us to do? Or are we all spinning our wheels and using staff time to no end for something that's going to produce nothing?
We might not have even building permits from homes 40, 50.
Exactly.
It won't.
And this seems like a place where the state and our congressional representatives should be helping us. Like the coastal towns, have they ever banded together and asked the state for assistance with FEMA? Because we can't be the only town, we're not the only town struggling with this, probably.
Right.
And-
I'm not aware of it, but I think that's certainly something we could put on our list to do.
Yeah, and our representatives, if we're having problems with a federal agency, they're supposed to intercede and help us.
When it comes to FEMA audits, they're choosing which homes they would like to analyze because there apparently has been an improvement done in that home. So they want the town to have elevation certificates.
How do they know that? Through the county building permit records, the state records? How do they know that?
So the couple that I saw, they actually drove, it looked like they were Google Earth, right, Dawn? They went down the
Yeah.
street. They saw a home that looked like it had improvements done in the last 10 years. And they asked for flood certificates and elevation certificates for those homes. Those are the ones that I saw when I sat in with Dawn on the FEMA review.
So that would make sense to me, a home that was, I'm going to use the word recently, within 10, 15 years modified, and they're going to say, well, what is it? Because that's the way they can mitigate their risk or.
And the biggest part for us is before Dawn showed up at town, it was our building official, the prior folks in those offices did not keep good records in our building office. And you can't find those certificates. And Dawn has to go over through our warehouse in West Rehoboth, and everything over there is paper. Everything over there is paper. And she has to dig through that to find these certificates that she's looking for. Everything that she's been here since then is everything's digitalized, and she can find it very easily on the computer.
Right. Okay.
So also, folks, what we need to remember is that homes that were built years ago, let's just choose in the 60s, they are called pre-firm homes. And FEMA does give them leeway. But when it comes to if there's been an improvement to that 1960s home, and that improvement or renovation has been more than 50% of the market value of that home before the improvement was done, then that's what FEMA wants to have, what's called a substantial improvement determination, and that the whole complete home now needs to be raised up appropriately to current FEMA standards.
And if they
And so-
don't, are they going to condemn the house? Will FEMA condemn that house?
FEMA does not
That's a
have
big nut.
FEMA does not have jurisdictional authority on that. They have the town enforce the FEMA flood codes.
Can I ask for clarification too? Because I know this has been confusing in the past. Dawn, do you know, is it market value or is it appraisal value? Because one of my concerns with that, and it's gone back and forth. You know, in the past 7, 8 years, many of our properties have risen in value, market value, by 100%. So something that was 700,000 is now 2 million. So if I did a renovation, a full renovation on my $700,000 home 20 years ago, and it cost me 100, I'm not even close to increasing my value by 50%. I would say anything in the past 10 years, given the market value spike, is never going to come under FEMA's, because the market value spike has gone up 100 and 200%. And I'm just wondering if we have any realization of how, you know, not to be using your time to look at things that aren't even going to come on the spectrum because of how the market value is raised. So my question is it actually market value, or is it appraised cost of the renovation versus some kind of formula appraisal value, meaning the cost of the structure given some percentage point? Because our market values have gone out of control.
Yes.
So,
Thank God.
yeah.
When FEMA uses that term market value appraisal, it has to do with the structure alone, no
Not the
land,
land.
no location, nothing. But
Okay.
it has to do with the structure alone and the condition of that structure at that moment in time.
Okay.
And so that if, and this is the illustration that I use, if let's say a genuine licensed Delaware appraiser went to a home and she says, the value of your home due to the condition of it is 120,000 is what I say it's going to be. And I'm being real facetious on those numbers. But yet you as a property owner want to do more than 50% of that 120,000 or more than $60,000 worth of renovations to that home, then the complete structure, if the lowest livable habitable floor is below the level that FEMA says it's going to flood someday and freeboard, the whole structure needs to be elevated. And
I
that's
think
what they want.
FEMA's going to have a riot because 60,000, let's just say there's a lot of houses in Dewey, their value of the structure, the cottage, is 50 or 60,000. But if you had a contractor come in and actually gut and put in a bathroom, that could cost 75,000. Now,
Yes, that
to
is true.
say that we would require our homeowner to now raise his house, raise his little cottage up, I don't even think it's going to happen. There's no way a homeowner is going to do it. And I believe it'll generate ridiculous amounts of lawsuits because we've probably got 40% of the cottages in town are still from the 60s. And they probably are only worth 75,000. They're still three-season structures. But if they put a new kitchen in, that kitchen could have cost 100,000.
That is
You
correct.
see the issue with like what would we really do if that's the case? I don't believe there's a homeowner sitting on a property that's worth 2 million, meaning the ground, with a cottage that's worth 80,000 that hasn't been renovated since the 60s, that is going to ever, the challenge on that would be far less legally than the price to do what FEMA would require. And it seems like there's some convoluted, something just doesn't make sense in what FEMA's requiring, particularly in towns like this that have these old $50,000 structures. I don't know, it's a little shocking.
I agree. FEMA is a dark hole that none of us get, but we're not going to resolve FEMA tonight.
No.
But I did kind of take notes. So I guess, does anybody else have any other conversation? I'm going to recap what I heard as recommendations and see if we can come to an agreement. So let me go through and list them. I've got a lot of them. So I'm going to start with the easy one. Increase the materials limit to $3,500. Define maintenance and repairs and exclude them from the permit process. Things like power washing would fit into that. Push on education, again, to Bill's point, but let's push on education again for what we can do for homeowners. We're going to capture metrics for the permit process, the time to turn them around, as well as those that are returned or require additional work. Exclude anything, I want to suggest maybe, I'll just leave the repairs, I'll leave that out. Focus on enforcement and compliance of what was permitted. In other words, have people focus on that as opposed to maybe issuing lots of little permits. Remove the town from enforcing non-town requirements like HOA. I would question whether or not we should add the county in there. Change the application to as property owner / LLC. We'd like to suggest a revisit of the business license for small jobs. I'll come back to that in a minute. We should take a look at automating the permit process. And I think we should investigate FEMA, what their actual requirements are, requiring maintenance and significant improvements. And I think we should also, if we find it's arduous, solicit our representatives, our state government, to provide some assistance. Maybe require some banding with other communities, but that's one of the things I heard. Did I miss anything?
Could I just add one more, David? I
Sure.
think our code enforcement people should start using Google Translate, because I'm hearing a lot of inspectors showing up at houses and the workers don't understand what they're saying and they leave the job. And Google, everybody's using it. It's easy.
Okay. Hey, I just one follow-up question, Bill. You mentioned business licenses. We said for cleaning people. So do we know how many businesses are actually permitted for cleaning in town? Do you have a sense of
I
that?
do. You may come in on a Saturday when everybody's doing the change for the
Yeah.
renters. You may run into some folks that are doing the cleaning
Themselves.
that have never been here before, or just by chance are a part-time person and only works a couple hours on Saturday, has missed them completely.
All right. So would that also imply for anybody who cuts lawns and does lawn work too in the town?
If they're coming in their own business, they're supposed to have a business license.
They're making money.
So the idea is if they're making money, they need a license. Okay. So I want to come back to those recommendations. Does anybody have anything else to add?
Are we, David, are we clear on the permit itself, the construction building permit itself, and the protocol of where Joe homeowner wants to do his deck? Because it's a structural item. Does he first have to go to the town hall to fill out an application? Does he then does it get forwarded to the county or the state to contact a permit for them, that a state or county inspector can come out and look at the structure?
I'll take a shot.
Seems it's not fluid.
Yeah, let me I'll summarize what I know and then Dawn will correct me. But in the case of you doing anything right now, the way it's written is, you're doing anything, you're supposed to apply for a application. You're supposed to submit the application. If it's something, an application, not a permit, but an application, it's the form you fill out.
The city of Dewey?
Yeah, it goes to Dewey first.
Okay.
It goes to Dewey first. if it's something that requires the county's permit, the town issues a letter, basically saying that they've looked at it, and yes, this requires some kind of county overview, and then the homeowner has to take the letter to the county. You have to go through the line and get a county permit, or you get the county permit, you pay for the permit. Then they give you something that you come back and bring it back to the town, and the town will turn around and issue you the permit. Did I get that correct, Don?
Yeah, but does the whole, excuse me, Dawn, but that step going to the state or the county, do the homeowners know they have to produce a drawing from a licensed architect / structural engineer to do structural work, footings and framing and so forth and so on, not just painting? Do they know that's a step? I think that's a big gap. They just throw their hands up and they just get it done anyway. I got a business license, I get it done, and that's what happened in my case.
David, I'm pretty sure, once again, this comes back to educating and what requires a permit, what doesn't. And I get Bill's point, how many times can you say it, but it's still not getting through. So I'm gonna say they'd have to look. I think it's on the, Jimmy's looking for me.
Yeah, and Dewey doesn't know if Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner has gone to the county to apply for the permit. There's no
But
paper.
they gotta come to the town first.
They have to go to the town first.
Right, but after the town says you need a permit with the county, Sussex County, how does Dewey know that that's tracking? And how do they know there was a permit issued? Does the county send Dewey the permit number?
No, you take the county's permit back to the town, and the town will issue you the permit.
Yeah. And where do they go? Do they know where to go to the county? Where's the county seat for the building department?
It's Georgetown.
I'm sure the town would let them know.
Go ahead, Dawn.
They should.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Whenever there's work being done in Dewey, the contractor or the property owner, whichever, must come to the town first. We may discuss the situation, the work to be done with the contractor, the property owner, and so forth, and get greatest details. If the permit is required from the county, then the town of Dewey Beach gives the contractor or the property owner a referral letter to take all the paperwork over to the county. Complete instructions with addresses and telephone numbers are given on instructions of what to do with getting a county permit. Once the county permit has been obtained, then all that paperwork is brought back to the town of Dewey Beach. It is documented in our files. Then all of the county paperwork is given back to the contractor or property owner, as well as the Dewey permit. All permits are supposed to be posted on the site of construction, both a white placard and a yellow placard. And
I
then
think
that
that's a
was
big,
the,
yeah, I think that's a big, that's a,
big.
yeah, and I understand that, but I don't think we have the soldiers to marshal this process. I think once they apply, the city of Dewey, we kind of forget about it. The city of Dewey, we don't know if the contractor has a county permit, work has started. You guys don't know about it until maybe someone speaks up and say, hey, there's no permit here, and they've been working here for weeks. I think there's a big gap of did we get the Mrs. Smith or whoever get a county permit?
So David, to your point, one of our recommendations is focus on enforcement and compliance of what was permitted.
But it wouldn't even be permitted at that point. They'd be working without a permit.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that goes into, if we're doing enforcement, focusing
Right,
on
and
enforcement.
that goes back to having our person drive around
Right.
and checking these job sites. And when they pull up and they see a construction truck on a Saturday, they don't know that a sliding door is being put back on its track. They don't know that until they go up and start talking to the person and saying, hey, what are you actually doing here? Do you have a permit to do this? And if it's an emergency, Dawn and I have always said, get the work done, fill the permit out on Monday. But unless our permit he does only 3 hours a day, unless he sees them, the work just goes on.
So I agree. I think though, whether that's a staffing issue or something else.
It's a money issue
Right.
because we can't hire them full time.
So
So we need more money in the budget, and more money in the budget means raising something, either parking or a property tax or some other fee, we're talking about cutting money, right? But we're also talking about having more enforcement, which costs more money.
So we're talking about, I disagree, we're talking about cutting a small amount of money to, I think, the
All
intent,
towns.
the intent is to reduce administrative burden, and more importantly, is to kind of address the needs of the homeowner. I get the point on the revenue, but there's got to be a balance here. We're hearing pretty loudly that people aren't happy. So.
And the homeowner, you're putting the homeowners at jeopardy by not having the structural inspections. That's the bottom line. We're putting everyone at risk. I was put at risk that we didn't have a structural inspection, footings were installed, framing was done, and it tied into my house. And I'm at risk right now that I have to resolve it some way that I really don't want to go down that way, but you're putting
Okay.
homeowners at risk.
I agree. I think I want to, because we can spend all night talking about what's not there. I want to try and get to, of the recommendations I read, can I get a motion to move those forward?
Wait, before we do that, can you repeat the one about the HOA? I didn't catch that one.
Yeah. Review the town's requirement to enforce county and HOA. I use the word requirements, but.
Oh, okay, so it was review, okay.
Review. I didn't say not. I said
Right.
I think we should review it and make some kind of determination whether or not we are, like, from the county's perspective and from an HOA.
Okay,
I understand your concern.
Yeah.
The town is the only point to kind of stopgap something. That's the only, and unless the town is
Right.
driving around and looking for that, right? So now we get back to the enforcement of who's doing what work when.
yeah, that's fine. I didn't hear you say review before, so I wasn't sure what we were doing. Okay.
So are we saying it's going to be a checkbox on the application that if applicable, the HOA has to be notified and check off a box for this permit process?
So we're not going that far down the road? I
Well, there
think.
already is one.
Is there something on there that says
Yeah,
HOA?
there is one.
Yeah,
There's already one on there, David.
okay. So, any more comments on my recommendations? I summarized?
Nope.
All right.
Slow down the building process because it's booming. South Dewey, north, downtown Dewey. I mean, there's been a lot of commercial and residential construction going on that we can't keep up with to protect our residents. So you slow it down, issuing permits, or you hire seasonal inspectors.
I don't know, I mean, I'm not quite comfortable with slowing down the pace of construction in town.
Well, you got to inspect what you expect.
I agree, that's on the list, David.
All right.
All right, I'll ask one more time. Can I get a motion to approve these recommendations?
I'll make a motion to approve those recommendations.
Thank you, Jimmy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Diane. I'm going to do a vote. I'm going to go around the room and ask. Jimmy, in favor or not?
In favor, 99%.
Diane?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And I'm going to vote yes as well. Okay, so I will summarize those recommendations. I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of it, but I will send it to the commissioners for their review.
Now, we didn't talk about a dollar, or is that the dollar amount 3,500? or what did we-
Our recommendation is to move it from 1,000 to 3,500.
Okay,
And
all
that's
right.
just material.
Right now, it still says material, unless you want to, that's what it was, not material, not just, I just changed the amount.
Why wasn't it labor and material? Most building permits is the total cost of the construction work is figured to the permit.
That's okay. Is everybody in agreement to change it? I'll make it materials and labor, no problem.
Well, I think that's a problem because I may have someone for $25 an hour and you may have someone for $150 an hour doing the same work. So I think we have to think about that.
Because the labor's already being permitted through a business license? Kind of,
Yeah, they have to have a business license.
Yeah, I guess does that kind of satisfy it? I mean, I think moving the materials to 3,500 is a good step. I mean, we can always reconsider. I mean, the commissioners can also take this up and they'll either accept or reject our things or ask us to take another look at things, but I'm just trying to move us through this tonight. I think these are good things to recommend, and I think we'll see what the commissioners think of our ideas.
I just thought it was the total cost of the job.
The permit is determined based on the cost of the job, materials, and labor.
The 3%.
Yeah, 3%. But the threshold, there's wording in the code that says if it's $1,000 or less, no permit is required. I believe that's what the code is.
So they could funnel the contractor's costs and throw it all into labor to bring down the threshold of $1,000. Yeah, you can play creative accounting and construction all the
we can
time.
do this all day
Schedule
long.
of values.
I just got a permit and the labor was included in that total price.
For the 3%? Yeah, it would be. For the 3%, the labor is included. The threshold for not issuing a permit is the materials. And it really only applies in a non-flood area, non-flood hazard area. Okay, so with that, I'm going to close the discussion on agenda item 1. All right, so let's move to the second item. We're just going to take an overview of the second item tonight because I think it's going to require some more study. So the next item is discuss potential topics for inclusion into the town code related to maintenance and upkeep of properties within the town. The committee may vote on recommendations tonight. So I'll give you a 2-minute background. This was an agenda item that was suggested by code enforcement to address concerns related to external appearances of properties in town. There are no real specific code areas. There's something in there for commercial regarding the maintenance of sidewalks. There's something in there for lawn service, but it is not organized in one place. So the thought would be is to list all the different things we think the town could use to make sure properties are kept in the appealing process so that they conform. Now, we had talked about using the International Property Maintenance Code. We decided that was too much. So what I did is just pick out some things out of Section C. I took those things and discussed it with Jim and Dawn. And what you have in front of here tonight is just basically a summary of the items that we thought would be of value. So I'm just going to introduce them tonight. I'm just going to talk about the topics and ask everyone to take a look at it. Maybe next meeting we can review them in more depth. But the things we talked about or suggesting is requirements around exterior structures, vacant structures, sidewalks and driveways, landscaping, rodent harborage, accessory structures, accumulation of trash, refuge, rubbish, or garbage, lighting and security, drainage and stormwater management, and graffiti and vandalism. The last topic on the list is outdoor storage and equipment. So you can see within each of those, there's like 4 or 5 sub-bullets. So what I'd ask you to do is just take a look at that between now and the next meeting, and we'll set some time to talk about each of them. That's agreeable to everybody. We've been here long enough now tonight. Okay? All right. So with that, is there any public discussion on the topic? Okay.
Just to be clear, is this for residential and commercial? I wasn't.
I would say yes. I'd say, so the point would be, we'd have to go through our code. There are pieces that would probably need to be extracted and put into one section. So there is a section on sidewalks for commercial. There's nothing for sidewalks for residential. There's a section for lawn, but there's nothing that speaks to the external structure of a house. Windows, doors, screens. There's nothing in there that the town can enforce it. And they have structures.
What about roofs?
We can add that. It's a good.
In a residential neighborhood, who owns the sidewalks in front of the house?
Think the town or us?
So on the state maintained road on Route 1, the town and the state do the work on those sidewalks. I don't know about the sidewalk that runs on Rodney Street in front of those townhomes. I'm not sure if the town's responsible for that sidewalk or whether the townhomes are responsible. I'd have to get back with you on that, sir.
Yeah, any residential street, being Bellevue, Clayton, St. Louis, those sidewalks, who's responsible when they finally need a replacement?
So
I think
on the ones that are attached to the businesses on the side streets, I would believe that they are the business's responsibility, but I don't know. I'll have to look and see where the property lines are. There are many sidewalks in town once you get off of Route 1. There are a few in the business area, and there is the one on Rodney Street. But I'd have to look at that and get back to you.
Like when the Claw on Bellevue built their building, excuse me, I guess the proffer was for the Claw to pave and put a speed bump 50 feet up Bellevue towards the ocean, but it stopped there and the balance of Bellevue was never paved. So was that a proffer with the building department? And who maintains these, again, the curb and gutter, sidewalks, roads on these residential streets?
So on the residential streets, the state's responsible for the street except for 4 streets in the town of Dewey. The rest of them are all responsibility of the state. The Claw, I'm not sure, Dawn may know about the sidewalk that went in front of it. The curbing is it's destroyed completely. We'll probably have the state work with them to do the work to replace them, replace the curbing. There aren't many curbs on the residential streets. Again, most of it's on 1.
Right. But eventually these streets, residential streets, they're probably as old as the city. They need to be maybe milled and put another inch down. Some of them either really cracking and.
So for the last 2 years, the state has said they're going to come in and repave the streets that belong to them. And as I said, they're all the streets except for 4 belong to the state. I'm asked them for a schedule for this year. They said they don't know when they're going to start, possibly sometime in October to do the repaving. I've asked them not to repave during Dewey Goes Pink because we have thousands of people around Salisbury, Sweet Street, and New Orleans Street. Hopefully this year they do repave. They will start in the north. They'll start on Chesapeake Street, the 2nd block, because the state owns the 2nd block of Chesapeake Street. The town owns the 1st block of Chesapeake Street. But we will let the state go through and do all their paving, and then I'll go back through and ask for CTF funding from the state to do those other 4 streets that aren't covered by the state in paving.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to ask for a motion at this point to table the item till the next meeting. So I just need a motion to table the item, table the maintenance of property discussion on that for this.
Possibly make a motion.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Until the next meeting.
And
Second.
Review it and table it and review it.
Right, review it. Everybody should review it. Everybody in favor? Any dissensions? Okay, so we'll adopt that. All right. Are there any other, we're getting ready to close here. Are there any comments around the table from the committee members? Any final discussions here tonight?
Did anything like from our December meeting when we made recommendations to the commissioners on trees, tree pits, how close to the house, so forth and so on, close to the other house, foundations, whatever happened with all that information?
Went to the commissioners and they reviewed it. They adopted some of the changes for the size of the tree they adopted. I can't remember all of them, but usually what happens is I send the notes off to Gary and then Gary will bring it up either in the next commissioners meeting. It has to be noticed. So there's a requirement that the public gets to know that this is going to be discussed. And then they go through the same process we did during their meeting.
Yeah, I don't recall the changes off the top of my head, but we can, I can send a copy of the resolution or the change that we made to David, and this the official signed copy.
Yeah.
So that you'll know the changes were adopted.
Yeah, because we did that at the same time when we got rid of the tents, It was that same
Right,
meeting.
yeah, the tents on the beach, that was all resolved, although I think we're probably going to revisit that again with regard to the canopies, but,
Oh.
I'm not sure. But there is some interest in perhaps revisiting that.
Thanks, Gary. Any other comments from town officials? Commissioner Persinger, any comments?
Nothing else. Thanks for the very long, lengthy discussion. I mean, I think it was very helpful, and very productive. Thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Marcia. Jimmy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.